Hi there, this is my channel, Jaru Walks. In the year 2024, I will embark on an epic walking journey across the United States. My plan is to walk 8,000 miles across the US 3 times, via the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, and the Continental Divide Trail. In the hiking world, this is known as a calendar year Triple Crown, and has only been completed by a handful of people in history. I plan to post weekly updates along the way, so you can join me for the journey. If I had to guess, I'd say that river's moving at like 15 or 20 miles per hour. It's going way faster than I am. It's been raining for 2 days, and it looks like every stream is running to this river because it's just ripping. Now it's joining with another river. So I've seen floods in my life before, but I've never seen one quite like what's going on down here. Let's go check it out. I don't know how well you can tell, but like if you dropped a truck in that, it would be knocked around like a ping pong ball. Such a cool morning. I'm literally walking along for 2 miles roughly this flooded river, and it's ripping. I've never seen a river this flooded. I mean, that's just insane. You don't have any depth perception looking at it, but that water is falling off of like a 4-foot ledge. And just, if you look at like 1 square inch of your screen, there's enough force there to push a like large truck, you know. I mean, it would crumple a truck. If you had a semi truck in that, it would just roll it down the river. The power is unbelievable. Walking into Kent, Connecticut now. I need to get more aqua mira for water purification and food. So I got this majestic graveyard on my right over here. And then, I think this is funny, when you come to a little town, it's like, what shops are they actually going to have? Because the town can only support so many things. And one thing they have here is a Royal Enfield dealer with vintage Land Cruisers. And so on the way into town, there were 2 different, college prep high schools on either side of the road, and they were playing field hockey. So I would imagine somehow the fact that one of the 5 stores in town is a Royal Enfield dealer, vintage Land Cruiser retailer, that those are somehow connected. Somehow one supports the other. Kind of looks like a nicer version of the Harvard campus. So that's a lacrosse field. You can see over to the right, that's where the home team sits on the left and the away team sits on the right. And then over here on the left, you have the bleachers. 3 bleachers that might seat about 15 people. So, not sure if that's indicative of how exciting lacrosse is, or how much parents who send their kids away to boarding school for an entire year love their children, but just a funny observation. So this is funny, I'm actually walking past that school again, the other direction, because the AT goes behind it, and then where I would connect in that field back there to go behind the school, there's a big board up. They boarded off the field and they said, this is private property, take detour. And so I have to walk almost all the way back into town to go around this hill, which is apparently private property. Gotta love it. So that's their swim arena. They have an Olympic swimming pool in there. I know people love it when I rant, but it's like when someone is like, just you wait, Pennsylvania's gonna get so much tougher. It's like, you don't know what you're talking about. A hill like this that is twice as steep as anything in Pennsylvania, with leaves that are worn down and soft, and when you put both your feet down on them, you slip. Like you can slip, like I've slipped just coming down this one hill. In the last 5 minutes, my feet have attempted to shoot out from under me 3 times in about the last 5 or 10 minutes. You try hiking like that, down a mile this steep. And then you got some person who's never hiked this trail comes, he's like, oh, just you wait for, later in Pennsylvania. And I'm like, sorry, but, in my 1,500 miles of walking, I recall this. I recall stuff like this. This is actually dangerous. And anyone, for example, who has hiked, let's say, the Pacific Crest Trail, but has not hiked the Appalachian Trail, would recognize basically that it's necessary to defer to the person who has through hiked the Appalachian Trail, because once you've hiked one long trail, you recognize how unique the trail is, and you're not about to come in and lecture someone who's actually hiked the trail on how they're wrong about how they're characterizing the trail. But it's just remarkable how many people don't look at things that way. They sit from their couch and say, oh, don't get upset, when you've hiked multiple marathons in a row in the rain and the snow. Maintain composure. Don't say things that are critical. Make sure you emphasize things that, indicate you're happy with hiking. It's like, how about maybe I had a day where I'm upset? How about maybe I had a week where I'm upset? How about maybe I had weeks where I was upset? And I'm not here to, throw a fake smile on my face when I'm pissed off. Man, I really love this stretch of Connecticut so much. You're just like cruising along the river. Temperatures are good, trail's flat, and it's like just soft dirt. So nice. And then I know in a couple of miles, this trail's gonna go right up some mountains. And then I think it's like 12 miles of zigzagging, maybe 15 miles of just zigzagging up and down mercilessly. Up and down mountains. So I just gotta enjoy this while I have it. So I'm just pausing here for a moment to just kind of analyze. This is obviously the Appalachian Trail back here. I've been walking along the rivers right over there between the trees. And then these are the Appalachian Mountains running along this way. And so since hitting like north of Virginia, the mountain ranges have really calmed down. So in Maryland and Pennsylvania, more or less, you like hit a town. I mean, when you hit the town, you come down, and then the town's down here. And then when you're done getting your food and stuff, you go back up out of the town. And then you cruise along these kind of mountains. But in Pennsylvania and Maryland, this literally looks flat. Like right there, it would just keep going straight, straight, straight. So when people talk about how Pennsylvania and Maryland are easy, that's what they're referring to, is that the mountain is not that tall. It's about the same elevation as these mountains, which might be 1,500 to 2,000 feet tall. But the difference between Connecticut and Pennsylvania is that in Connecticut, these mountains have zigzags like this, but these are by comparison to what I've been going through in Connecticut, very minor. Connecticut is much more zigzaggy along the top. But Pennsylvania would be just consistent, steady, almost like a road along the top. And this is just a rare moment where it's been a 5-mile stretch of walking along the creek. And the general rule of the Appalachian Trail is if they can find any way to make your life more miserable and difficult, they'll take that route. So normally you would be cruising along that exact ridge. And so it's completely uncharacteristic right now for me to be paralleling that ridge when I would have been currently on this trail, when normally the Appalachian Trail just follows that contour. And I can see how that contour is coming down to meet the trail. And so I just can't fathom that this trail is then going to go around that. I have a feeling it's going to kick right up and over and we'll be back on the ridge again. So just pausing because it's a beautiful moment where I can really show you what it is that I've been hiking along for 1,500 miles now is basically this ridge line. And then depending on where you are in the country, it's either, right here, that's probably about 1,500 feet. Now imagine in Tennessee, North Carolina, it goes up to 4,000 feet. Okay? And then even as high as 5,000 feet. So add on to it, and then it'll be just massive zigzags up and down. And those up ones can take 4 miles to go up and come back down. So this just gives you a sense of like how hard the Appalachian Trail is. It's not like other trails where you hit flat stretches for days and then you hit a mountain and you go up and over it. The Appalachian Trail is the Appalachian Mountains. It's that thing for 1,500 miles so far. And again, that hill to me is nothing compared to what Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, all those states, the mountains are much harder than Maryland and Pennsylvania. And Connecticut is right back there again. The only difference is Connecticut only goes up to 1,500 or 2,000 feet, whereas all those states before Maryland, further south, they're routinely at 4,000 feet. I think Virginia calms down a little bit to around 3,000 feet. But Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, it seemed like you're just routinely every couple of days going back over 4,000 feet. And I will say there's something magical about 4,000 feet where the weather, no matter what it is down here on the ground, up there, it's just a different weather system. It's windier, colder, rainier, foggier, just much more difficult. So when people say Maryland and Pennsylvania are a bit of a, and I would even include New Jersey in that, are a bit of a breather section, that's what they're referring to. And so if you've only ever hiked those states, you really have no sense of how bad it gets. But right here, we can visualize it by seeing it. And I think people don't quite recognize as well just how challenging it is to walk 1,500 miles on top of that ridge. And again, that's an easy looking ridge to me. Not to exaggerate. That looks easy to me compared to most of the rest of the trail. And so if I understand correctly, in roughly 400 miles, I will be hitting New Hampshire, where the White Mountains are. And then I have Maine after New Hampshire. And those mountains are around 5,000 feet routinely. And the range just zigzags, whipsaws up and down like this. Not kidding, we'll see it in a week or two. A couple of weeks, I should hit the Whites. And it's gonna get crazy because it'll be way snowier, muddier, the most challenging elevation change. But luckily it's at the end of the Appalachian Trail, so I'm in better shape. But it's gonna be wild. Alrighty, here we go. Back into hell. The whole trail smells like pine cones right now. Second town I'm in Connecticut, and it's just wild because Every building in Connecticut so far looks like a country club. I think that's a public high school. And so I would say Connecticut is a very beautiful state so far. Maybe the most beautiful. I would say New York and Connecticut on average have been the most beautiful states. Also the wealthiest states. I've noticed as you come north, virtually every state has felt wealthier than the previous state, except for maybe Tennessee. Let's see, off to the right. You can see spring is arriving here. I still have the sense that I'm gonna hike my way out of the spring. Feels too good to be true. And then as far as Connecticut, it's all these like, wooden homes and red brick homes. It's interesting. They're mostly empty. So it seems that it's like, so far, the state of Connecticut is like a retirement community for people who've worked in New York their whole life. Or maybe work remotely. I'm not sure. Because my sense is that these are all like, these homes probably start at like $1.5 to $2 million. But there doesn't really seem to be an industry in Connecticut. You just have these little towns that have restaurants in them, but no real economy that I'm seeing. Like, look at this beautiful house back here. That's what all the houses look like here. So it's just interesting kind of walking through an area where there's clearly a lot of wealth, but not really an economy. Like, look at this house. Because I've been, other parts of the country where you have wealthy cities and they kind of like engineer the city around the town, make it a separate city, have things like roads that don't have curbs. Because curbs are for the working class. But I've just never been to an entire state that feels like an upper class city or town. But it seems so far Connecticut, so far that has been the experience of Connecticut. So, yeah, interesting. Especially as I'm coming north, I'm starting to have a lot of the visual image of the hyperlapse of the East Coast in mind now, because I've done like 2/3 of this trail. And that's the wildest thing about this trail, maybe, is how you've walked an entire coast of the United States through intersecting, 9 states or something so far. And you have this panorama image in your head that only other people who've done that hike will have, and virtually nobody's done that hike. But it just gives you such a unique perspective on the country. I'm really excited to do the West Coast next and the center of the United States, to have these, like, I feel like what is it? Is that a word? Anatomist? But someone who's like dissecting cross sections of the country. And that's one of the fun things that, the panorama image is starting to render. dog with no owner just comes blowing past me. Oh, there's the owner way up there. I hope it comes back. There it is. Like when I was here, it just comes just running right by. All right, I'm in Salisbury, Connecticut in this graveyard. These tombstones go back like 250 years. So just look at like the most impressive ones are the ones that are tiny. And they're just covered in moss and all of the letters are gone. And so like if you take like some of these up here, these are the first ones that caught my eye in the corner here. So like they're all so old that you cannot read them anymore. But I was seeing years that were like 1830 on them. But then what I noticed is if you come around the back, they're stamped with the actual information. So this person was born in 1750 and died in 1799. So that's like roughly 200, I guess if you take it by the death, a 225-year-old gravestone. And then you gotta wonder though about like these ones that are just covered in moss and are completely worn down. I think those are maybe 250 or 300 years old. I mean, just wild. That one, I just want to find out if there's any of these super old ones that are stamped, like this one. 1750 to 1772. Charlotte Winslow. (1730 to 1778). Nathaniel Winslow. The Winslows are by each other. Wow. Unbelievable. What is this? 1749 to 1775. It's wild to think that all of these years are matching up. So like these are old gravestones, but the deaths are all lining up to the late 1700s. So these people that I'm pointing to from an ancient time all roughly knew each other in this town, or at least knew who of each other. It's a whole generation that's just gone. Look at these. Just covered in moss. Illegible. Yeah. Just lost to time. All right, I'm gonna look at these other two small ones up here. They have plaques on them. Betsy Chipman, 1775 to 1778. Wow. Betsy Chipman II, 1779 to 1781. Crazy. Anyway, I'm hungry and I want to go find dinner. Wow, I think that the American flags actually symbolize veterans of the Revolutionary War. This says 1776 on it. There's no plaque though, is there? No. Wow. Crazy. Yes, it is. Let me obey your instruction here. Don't break the door.
Well, I usually leave that off because, you know, there's a lock downstairs. So it's not like we have to lock this for security.
Yes.
But just in case some people...
Be extra secure. Look at this wall. Looks like it's 200 years old. So I'm at the Maria McCabe Hostel in Salisbury, Connecticut. It's been raining all morning. It's currently 8:45. I'll probably leave here at 9:30 because the rain has stopped, and I think we're good for the rest of the day, hopefully. My challenge for this morning is I bought a large-sized box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and I'm going to see how much of that I can eat, basically, before I leave. So following up on the cereal here, you can see it's at the very bottom. I don't know if you can see, but it is. It's down here somewhere. That's as far as I can make it. One more update here. These are my shoes at, I think they have something like 800, at least 800, maybe 850 miles on them. Yeah, I think you saw a little over a month ago, I replaced my first pair of shoes. These are my second pair. It's hard to tell by looking at them because they don't have the same holes in them the last shoes had, right? Like this is the only part of the shoe that has a hole in it right now. They look relatively in decent condition, but I'll tell you that the sole, like the soles in here are very mashed down. It's interesting though, for example, that the side of the shoe doesn't have holes in it. None of my two shoes, neither of them have holes in the side. But my blue shoes, which are the identical shoe, just a different color, which I wore for the first 600 miles of the trail, had holes in the sides, both sides of both shoes here. And in my opinion, that is indicative of how much harder the first 600 miles of the trail are. These shoes have 850 miles on them. Those shoes had something like 650 miles on them. And both of those blue shoes had gaping holes in the sides of them and were much more broken down over 600 miles. I think due to just the steep climbs and the steep downhills where your foot is shifting all around in the shoe, pushing up against the side of the shoe and whatnot. It just put a lot more wear and tear on the upper half of the shoe. But I will say that the cushioned part of this shoe is definitely more damaged, and my feet are sore. So I'm really excited to have a new set of shoes. Again, it's the identical shoe, the Topo Ultra Venture 3. My only disappointment with these is, like, Topo's decided to discontinue the green on green color. I actually emailed them about it. I just love that, like, in general, I don't like logos, and I just like that if there's a logo that it's kind of almost hidden, and it's green on green. And I'll tell you, like, I've probably had 5 or 6 people ask me, like, what kind of shoe this is, and they really like the green color. Again, this is a shoe that's destroyed at this point, so don't judge it too harsh. And now it's like the only options for Topo Ultra Venture 3s is like bright orange, bright blue with like neon yellow logo, and then it's like a gray shoe with a red logo on it. And it's like kind of like, if I imagine who would wear the bright blue and the bright orange shoes, it would be Mark Zuckerberg. And then if I imagine who would wear the gray shoes with a red logo, it would be Al Gore. And so, you know, if you want to look like Mark Zuckerberg or Al Gore, by all means, you know, make shoes that are like neon yellow, blue, and highlighter orange. It's like for like the person who like is concerned they're not going to be seen on trail, you know, when the helicopter comes to rescue them. Like, you know, it's going to be the shoe that the helicopter pilot sees. It's not going to be you. It'll be the, thank God I got the highlighter orange shoe, you know. And then if you don't have any personality like Al Gore, you could get the gray shoe. So I'm just annoyed that like Topo doesn't make an actual good looking shoe anymore, even though the shoe itself functionally is phenomenal. So yeah, I value the substance of the shoe over the, I don't know, style or the form. So I'm going to continue with the Topos, but it's just a little detail that I just find annoying. So I don't know, Topo, I hope you bring the green on green or some other kind of subtle, cooler color back. So I'm on my way out of Salisbury. This is another big graveyard in town. This one's younger, so it dates back to the mid 19th century, so 1850s are when these people passed. You can see that one, 1858, right there in front, if you can't see it. And you got people, you know, who were alive during the Civil War, and so you got American flags from Civil War veterans. Just wild. This town is hundreds of years old, and you just have hundreds of years of generations that have lived here. You know, I don't know, it's just an interesting perspective, considering the generations of people, how all these people presumably knew each other, you know, in the 1800s. It would just be surreal to be from 1800, teleport to the future right now, and look at these graves of everyone you ever knew. Here I am, walking down this road in my Mark Zuckerberg shoes, drinking a $4 coffee. There's nothing, I've been kind of pondering what experience is the most opposite of the trail, and it's definitely walking into coffee shops that roast their own coffee. Just that warm, maybe warm's not the right word, it's like that minimalist design. Don't get me wrong, I love good coffee, and especially coffee roasteries. It's just funny because the inside of those, yeah, just like modern coffee shops, for whatever reason, feels the most opposite to hiking on trail. It makes me most aware that I'm not on trail. Couple of observations. Number one is Connecticut, northern Connecticut looks nothing like anything I've seen so far. It's the most beautiful section of the AT that I've seen so far. And I mean, I'm really sensing, since somewhere in central New York, just south of Poughkeepsie, a shift in the, in the nature. And it's just, wow, just beautiful. Even though there aren't really any animals here with me, this feels alive. And it's not that spring's beginning to arrive. Just something about this place feels, just alive. Maybe it's just the moss growing on every rock, but it just feels vibrant and untouched and just full of life. So anyway, I'm really enjoying, I feel like I'm wandering, I don't even really feel like I'm hiking today. Another thing that I'm almost making note of for my own sake is, I think for the last week or so, I've been hiking a little dehydrated, like not drinking enough water. Because when I hit this last town, I felt very depleted and exhausted. And so I just went out of my way while I was at this last hostel to just chug a lot of water to see if that would help. And man, I feel so good today. That sense of exhaustion that would just hit me right in the morning, I've had none of it today. So I'm hoping that I might have hit upon something with that. And then also, I got my Mark Zuckerberg shoes, and only once putting them on did I really appreciate how broken down my last set of shoes were. I mean, I was really, my feet were basically mildly swollen, and it felt like I could feel every connection point between every bone in my feet. I'm exaggerating, but I'm just trying to put it into perspective. And today, as soon as I put the shoes on and started walking, it was just like a night and day difference. And I wasn't expecting that to happen, so it's not like a placebo. I just put them on and wow, they feel so good. So it's going to be important going forward, I think, to go out of my way to drink more water than I think that I need until I figure out how much I actually need. And then also, when I hit like 450 miles, I need to be thinking really ahead of schedule. Where's the next place I can mail drop new shoes to? So, because both of those were really hurting me through that last stretch. This is actually really funny because I just checked my location on the map because I wanted to record a video for when I leave Connecticut. I actually had just left Connecticut maybe 2 miles back there when I felt that transition. It's so strange how when you cross state borders, it's not just some political boundary. You literally can see like step changes in the actual environment surrounding you. I mean, I'm telling you, look at that. Just 3 miles back, I wasn't seeing wide-bodied creeks with mossy waterfalls and coves, because I'm in Massachusetts now. I just crossed the border to Massachusetts 2 miles back. So let me correct myself and say, wow, Massachusetts is maybe the most beautiful state I've hit so far. Well, I get a sign, but I definitely entered Massachusetts earlier, but here's the sign.